Welcome to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast, where we celebrate Minnesota's incredible fiction authors and the stories that make our literary scene so vibrant. I'm Rob Jung.
And I'm Michael MacBride. Together, we're the team behind Bell Cow Productions and the Bell Cow Catalog, a digital catalog designed to connect Minnesota authors with readers, libraries, and indie bookstores.
The catalog will be heading to all 377 Minnesota libraries, 80 plus indie bookstores, plus those in border cities such as Sioux Falls, Fargo, Superior, and La Crosse.
And now with this podcast, we get to bring those amazing voices to life. Every episode features one of our herd members talking about their books, their writing journey, and the stories behind the stories.
And before we start, let us apologize for all the cow-related puns you're about to hear.
All right, let's dig in.
Hi, and welcome again to the Bell Cow Herd podcast. Today we are excited because Terri Karsten has agreed to come and be our guest and to tell us about life in Winona, Minnesota, and her writing. Terri, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. I was looking at your bio a bit, and you are akin to me in that you write in multiple genres, fiction, nonfiction, and I love. I don't know. I imagine kind of like you that you're just pulled in different directions at different times. I'm curious, did that come naturally, or like what kind of sparked that?
Well, I've been writing since I was 7, and a second grade teacher pretty much said, "Write a short story." I wanted a puppy dog. My parents wouldn't let me have one, so I wrote a story where she got one, and
Yeah.
it occurred to me then, okay, writers can make anything they want happen.
Yeah.
And so I started writing stories and telling stories to my siblings, a lot of that. But also, I have a lot of interests. So when something strikes me as being fascinating, I pursue it. And that draws me in a lot of different directions. I started out mostly writing for kids, but as I got older, so did my protagonists get older. Although I've gone back to, I do some children's stuff still too, but I really like writing for adults as well. So it's just a
Well,
lot of different interests.
I found it interesting. I'm looking at your book titles right now. So, and we run the gamut from a how-to to make a backyard brick oven to
Yes,
a travelogue through Ireland
yes,
to editing an anthology all about ghosts and haunting things.
right.
Um, so this suggests to me that you have a very active imagination.
Yeah, I really do. I think I live more of my life in my head than I do in the real world. Um, to the point where my mom used to say the house could burn down around me and I wouldn't notice because I was busy thinking or imagining something
Yeah,
else. And stories really are good.
yeah. So what do you do in the real world?
Well, I was a high school English teacher for 21 years.
Okay.
I have retired from that. I still do some teaching here and there, um, some like memoir writing or writing for kids, different kinds of like community ed classes, and I do some editing. But I'm supposedly retired.
Have you flunked?
I think I flunked retirement because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
busier
I
now than
understand.
when I was teaching full time. So
I understand that. Did you teach at Winona High or at Cotter or
I taught across the river in Cochrane Fountain City. So I
Cochrane Fountain
was
City? Okay.
yeah. So I taught seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, and 12th grade at
Yeah.
various different times in my career. And I also was the curriculum director for K through 12 all subjects for quite a while. Um,
Wow.
so I really like writing curriculum too. So that, I mean, if it's writing, I kind of like it. So,
I'm looking for a published book on curriculum. I don't see any in here. So,
well, no, I didn't put one in there, but I did one of my novels for middle grade. I wrote a curriculum for it that includes all the state standards.
oh wow. What a great
So,
idea.
yeah, and
So,
some nonfiction pieces to go with the fiction, because teachers appreciate that.
So
So
have any of your, oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, is it safe to say that to write the book about Ireland, you had to go do significant research to explore the country?
Well, my father lived in Ireland for the last 30 years of his life, and he bought a small cottage about maybe 5 miles from where his grandfather had been born.
Oh, wow.
So I've been there quite a few times. So the travelogue of Ireland is like my favorite places in Ireland.
Uh,
That so the places I've gone to. So the pictures, all the pictures are pictures I've taken, or else my sisters or brothers that were with me took them. So it's all, our photographs. And then I did some research into the stories behind those places. So, like, why is the Giant's Causeway called the Giant's Causeway, for instance, or
yeah.
why do people lay on their back and hang upside down to kiss a stone at Barney Castle? Where does that come from? Where does the story come from? So I did that research for that part of it.
I love it.
Interesting.
In part, I was really just joking because, like, as a writer, anywhere you go could be research, right? But
Well,
that does seem like an ideal place to go and research for sure. So,
it's a lovely place. It's
Yeah.
just people are so friendly there.
Have you spent any time in Kilkenny?
No, my relatives live in County Monaghan. And so I've done more time in County Monaghan than any place else. That's
Okay.
right a little bit south of the border to Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Um, they were
Okay.
they were probably smugglers for a while, but we don't necessarily talk about that.
Yeah. 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 Well,
that's another
well,
book.
you write historical fiction. Sounds like a perfect story.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
tell us about how did you get into historical fiction?
Well, that goes back. I think I first got interested in historical fiction way back in second grade again, because
Mm.
the first book I remember reading, like a novel that I remember reading, was called The Children of the Lost Crusade. And it was
Mm.
about these children that were going on a crusade, and the horrible things that happened to them, the shipwrecks and turned into slavery and everything. This was my second grade reading. The teachers had told me that the book was I was too young to read it, but I read it anyway. And it really kind of made me interested in how do we know about these things? And I'm far more interested when I write a lot of historical fiction, but I'm really interested in how the ordinary people were living, especially the ordinary women. I really write a lot about strong women, um, because we don't always think about, we hear in history classes, we read about the famous people and the wars and the treaties and things like that. But I'm more
Mm.
interested in how does a woman make sure that her children are fed? How does she put supper on the table? How does she, change a diaper? These are things that ordinary people need to know. Um, and I wanted to know more about that. That started way back then, but then I also spent a lot of time in high school. I was fascinated with the Vikings, and I go through these different periods where I'm really fascinated with a particular topic. I think it has a little bit to do with ADHD or something. I'm not sure, but I get these focused topics. Um, and I was involved in a group called the Society for Creative Anachronisms for a long time, which recreates the Middle Ages as they should have been. And I started doing a lot of historical cookery because of that. So I take recipes from the Middle Ages, or more recently from the colonial period, and first of all translate them into modern English so we can figure out how much a gill is or different things like that. And then do it, then make the ingredients, find the ingredients and make the dish and see what it tastes like. And so that got me involved. That's something I really like doing, is this historical. It's research, right? It's kind of experiential research, I would call it, figuring out what people ate. And that's why I put this necessary death into a tavern, because I wanted to have some recipes involved in
Yeah,
it.
I was going to ask if that was the connection. So
Yeah.
very, very cool.
I have definitely found a kindred soul. Like this is the kind of stuff I like. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, what is this thing? I want to figure that out, and like go down the rabbit hole,
yeah,
like you said, like that intense focus for a period of time until you get to some kind of conclusion and experimentation. I love that idea of translating recipes so that you can try what they were like. You know, that's just incredible. It's a great idea.
There's some really good
I,
foods out there too.
Yeah.
I'm in awe because I feel like I'm in the company of two of the most curious people in the world right now, and I feel like I got left out someplace, you know. So anyway, tell us about the house you live in.
So yeah, I moved into this house on January 1st, 80, 1981. 1981 is January 1st. The house was built by a farmer um, in the 1890s, and the it creaks. There's lots of creaks in the house.
Okay.
It when we moved in, when I first moved in, there was no central heat in the house. And of course it was January 1st. But and I'd come from I hadn't I'd been living in Iowa and Madison for a few years before, but I was from California. So the cold was a little surprising to me. And we didn't have, like I said, we didn't have this central heat. We had an oil burning space heater in the in one room of the house that and a grate in the floor so that the heat is supposed to rise and heat up the
Yeah.
upstairs. Only the one January, it didn't. There was ice on all the inside windows upstairs.
Hmm.
So we closed off the upstairs and we camped on the floor. I had three kids at the time, and we camped in sleeping bags on the floor in front of the space heater. And I did a lot of baking.
To warm up the house.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I grew up in a similar kind of house in rural Wisconsin. And if you got a good wind out of the west and a snowstorm in the upstairs, which was heated as your house is through a grate in the floor, you'd have snow drifts on the inside of the windowsills.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You couldn't keep a match lit if there was a west wind.
Right. There's no insulation.
No
There's no
insulation. Yeah.
insulation in the walls. I mean, we've
So,
done some remodeling. I've been here for what, 45 years now. So, um, it's better now. We have heat and we
yay.
have double paned windows. So and insulation, blown in insulation in the walls. So it's much more comfortable than it was.
Yeah,
But
great. So
it's
what's getting back to writing? What's next on your agenda?
well, the book that just came out in September has a sequel to it.
Ah,
It's so they're standalone, but it's the same character. So it's a series. And I've got the second one hoping to come out next fall, and there'll be a third one. So it's going to be a three-book series. The first one is done out in September. The next one I'm hoping to be next September, and the third one right now is a horrible mess. So we'll see where that ends
yeah.
up. I've
So
got a draft, but you know, it's a first draft. So
yeah. So the book you're talking about that came out in September was A Necessary Death.
yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So this is about it's about a woman who has just been informed that her husband has been lost at sea. He's been missing for a long time, but he sent money home, and so everything was cool. But when he is reported dead, she has to sell everything to pay off his debts, and then she has no place to live, so she's going to live with her sister, who really that she hasn't really seen her sister in years. And on the coach ride going north from Philadelphia toward Boston, the coach crashes and they get stuck at a tavern where she discovers a dead man in the tavern privy. And of course, in the colonial period, the privy was called the necessary. So
So,
the idea for the book actually came from an article I read in Smithsonian Magazine quite a long time ago about an archaeologist who found a skeleton of a young boy near a tavern. And I decided I should figure out what made that happen.
Interesting. So, do you have a, is there something you could read to us? Give us a little
Sure,
taste of a necessary death?
sure. I thought I could read the first couple pages and the last couple pages um of the first chapter.
Sure.
That sounds great.
All right, here it goes. Okay. Chapter 1, in which rain and mud lead to a gruesome discovery. Penelope Corbett braced against the jostling of the Boston-bound coach. How much more could she be expected to endure? She closed her eyes to ease the headache that had been nagging since the midday rest at McConkey's Ferry hours ago. At the inn, 35 miles north of Philadelphia, the innkeeper had dished out hot Dauphiny soup made of fine wheatmeal and suet, nearly as good as her own. But they'd only had half an hour to bolt the soup, use the necessary, and try in vain to dry out. She should never have agreed to coach traveling over sailing, though she had no trust in the seas and thought the coach would prove drier. Early May ought to bring primroses and sunshine, not this incessant rain. The coach wheels squeaked with the wet. The stench of damp wool and musty linen permeated the carriage. Worse, 3 times in as many hours they had become so bogged down that she and the other passengers had been forced to get out and slog behind. Still, as bad as traveling had been, Penelope had no desire to see the journey end. All that awaited her in Boston was a sister Penelope hadn't seen in 10 years, reluctantly offering charity to Penelope and her children. Inwardly, Penelope damned coaches and rain and mud, and most of all, husbands who died without warning. And then I'm going to skip to toward the end of the chapter. The coach crashes, and they have to get out and walk to a nearby tavern. Built of dressed fieldstone, the solid structure stood 2.5 stories high. A pair of windows flanked each side of the door. A pent-roofed porch ran the length of the building, and a battered wooden sign with a faded painting of a mug swayed from a post near the center. "You go on inside," Penelope told her companions. After all that jostling, she had a rather urgent need to visit the necessary around back. She hurried along the side of the tavern. A path led past an unkempt garden. Brown weeds twisted around a wooden fence. Clusters of lavender and pennyroyal had gone to seed. Tender shoots of new weeds poked up through the tangled mass of last year's crops. Whoever managed the garden was behind the times with it. It should have been spaded and planted weeks ago if the owner expected to produce anything. Penelope tisked at such neglect. At the rear of the garden, she scanned the property for an outhouse. A weathered shack hugged the far edge of the plantation near the tavern's woodlot. She followed the path and pulled open the door. A man, dressed all in black, sat in front of her. "Oh, dear, I beg your pardon," she blurted, stumbling back and letting the door slam shut. But even as the heat rose in her cheeks, Penelope realized the man inside the privy would never complain about the embarrassment. He was quite dead.
Nice.
I
I
love
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, darn. Well, so the question is, did she just kind of pull him out of the privy so she could go to the bathroom, or
Well, she no, she ends up going across the road to the parsonage
ah,
to borrow their privy.
okay.
So
So,
I love how the chapter. So my background really is in studying like 18th century literature, 18th and 19th century literature. So I love that your chapters are in which da 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 da, which was something that I remember like discovering, like occurring to me like, oh my God, this is a thing that they used to do. They gave little summaries so that like if you lost your spot, you could figure out where you were. And if you needed a Cliff Notes version of the book, you could just kind of scan the table of contents also. But
Right. Yeah. It gives it a more colonial flavor or 18th century flavor to add that in there.
yeah, that's great. Nice touch.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you said you have book 2 ready to come out next September. Book 3 is a mess.
Right.
So I assume that has all your attentions, but is there something else? Because I know even when I have something that's supposed to have all my attention, sometimes I'm pulled in other directions by things that are shinier. Do you have any shinier things that are calling to you?
I actually do. I just finished work on a grant from the Minnesota Historical Society, researching the life of Matilda Bunnell, who the Bunnell House.
Funnel House.
The
Yes.
Bunnell House.
Yeah.
Matilda is the wife of Willard Bunnell, and so the woman who lived in the house. And again, I'm really interested in women's lives. So I've been spending quite a bit of time researching her life from when she was born, and I just finished the report. So that's an essay. It's a 62-page essay with 428 footnotes, kind of thing. That kind of an essay with a annotated bibliography of 102 sources.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
but what I want to do now, now that that research is done, is I'd like to write fictionalized novel of her life. Either I have a couple of different ways I could go with it, either a children's picture book um, showing her life, or like a novelized version of her life. Uh,
What's what
Go
what's
ahead.
the little township that the Bundle House is located in, just
Oh,
south of
it's
Winona?
called Homer.
Homer, there you go.
Homer, yeah, named after where Willard was born in Homer, New York.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he named it
No.
Homer after his his hometown. Matilda was actually born in Detroit.
Wow.
No.
So the report you have written, what happens with that? I mean, it goes to them. I assume they can kind of do what they'd like with it, but does it get published publicly
Um,
somewhere
I, I
or
don't I don't know that it's. I think it goes into their archives,
okay.
and it goes into the Winona Historical Society archives, so it becomes a reference work. I don't I don't think it gets published as a report. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's nonfiction and it's footnote heavy. Um,
Hmm.
so there's maybe I have to see what the Historical Society would like to do with it after this.
Sure.
Uh, it would be great if it got published. I don't know how many people would read a report like that, but I think it's valuable research. So it's certainly pulling together a lot of different factors and showing, there's not a lot written. Matilda was probably illiterate. There's nothing that she left behind that's written. And she grew up speaking French and Ojibwe and learned English as a child, but then learned a Winnebago later. So she knew a lot. She was smart, but there were no schools where she lived, and her parents were definitely illiterate because they signed deeds with an X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
just is looking at the pioneer woman's life from a different perspective.
For sure. Well, and I know, I
Yeah.
mean, those documents are invaluable to anybody who wants to come along behind you and do additional work, right? You've saved a
Right.
lot of time and laid the foundation for who knows what somebody else might want to do with that information. So, um, cool. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And praise those organizations that provide grants to do things like that, because
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I
otherwise
certainly
there,
do. Really appreciate that. The one
well,
other thing I'm working on that's a little bit lighter is a children's picture book about the trolls in Iceland.
Oh,
well,
nice.
So
why not?
why not, right? You got to have more than one ball
Yeah.
in the air when you're
Yeah,
juggling.
really. And for her next act,
Right.
oh, Terry, that's fascinating. We usually, it's about that time where we start to wind these down, and we usually end up our sessions on this podcast with what we euphemistically call a lightning round, or sometime other things, but basically a series of questions that really don't have anything to do with writing necessarily, or even books, but have to do with things that will maybe let listeners and viewers get another little snapshot of who you are and what makes you tick. So, Michael, have you got an opening one for us?
I'm curious, just I mean, as somebody who loves research and random information, like, is there some wonderful historical nugget or thing that you've learned along the way that has not found its way into a book yet that you think is just fantastic?
Yeah, I hope it's going to be a book someday. Charlemagne, everybody's heard of Charlemagne,
Yeah.
and the I, Irene Irene, who was the Empress of Constantinople, was living at approximately the same time. And the sheikh who is in the Arabian Nights, the real person who was that sheikh,
Yeah.
was living at the same time. So these got these three rulers vying for power. And I, uh, Irene sent Charlemagne an elephant, and that elephant was part of Charlemagne's war efforts, and ended up dying in Germany. And I think that's fascinating.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I wonder if that was done with the malice aforethought, with the white elephant story of where it apparently arose in India, where the sultans would give a great gift, an elephant that would basically eat the other sultan out of house and home. So
Yeah, it seems
um,
like a strange gift.
yeah, really. Um, so if the sky wasn't blue, what color would you paint it,
Purple,
and why?
because purple is the color that's next prettiest to blue.
Okay. All right.
It would have to be a light purple so it didn't feel like it was too dark and gloomy. Make it a kind of a light purple. That would be really pretty.
All right.
I like it. How about what books early on inspired you? Like what were some of the authors as a young Terri that you enjoyed?
Oh, well, of course, The Children of the Lost Crusade was one
Yes.
of them, but I also read a book called Shaken Days that was about the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. And I really loved that book a lot too. I was also really, really fascinated with Native Americans at that time, third grade. And I read all 52 books written by Sonia Bleecker about she had a different book about each tribe, and I read all of them. So that was
Wow.
nonfiction. That was my rebellious stage because the school moved me around so that I was missing the unit on Native Americans from one class, and I wasn't going to let them prevent me from learning something. So I learned something.
I love it.
That was impressive. So if there was one person, alive or dead, with whom you could spend lunch and converse with, who would you pay? Who would it be?
Oh, I think I'd go with Ben Franklin.
Okay.
He
Interesting.
was such a fascinating guy. I'd probably want to make sure that I kept a little bit of distance from him,
Yeah. For
or maybe
personal
had
safety.
someone else with me because he
Yeah.
was a good flirt too.
A little
But
predatory.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he was really he did so many things, and he had so many really neat accomplishments. It'd be great. I think it'd be fascinating to talk to him.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, you got one more?
Yeah, I was curious. I'm gonna do the old standby, which is cooking. So you've talked about these recipes from the past that you're translating and trying. Do you have a dish though that in general you're just known for? Like if someone were to come to your house, the thing that you would make that's like the safe dish that you don't even have to think about anymore.
I have quite a few of those.
Uh,
So, I make something called oat cakes that all of my family and my friends love. Oat cakes, it's actually a cracker. It's a medieval cracker made with whole oats, like rolled oats and cream and butter. So they're really, really good for you, right? Uh,
yeah.
but you roll it out really, you mix this, it's a little bit of white flour and rolled oats and butter and cream, and you roll it out fairly thin. And before baking it, you sprinkle salt on it. So there's no salt in the cracker, but there's salt on it. And it's a medieval recipe that I got from a book called Plain Delight. Probably I've been making them for about 30 years or 40 years.
Well,
That sounds
makes
delicious.
yeah, it does. Makes me think about, and with your connection with Ireland, have you ever heard of the Battle of the Biscuits?
No, I haven't.
Battle of the Biscuits was an actual battle, and and I did some research on it years ago, and I wrote a short story that was used the Battle of the Biscuits as part of it. But basically, the British were trying to get uh, supplies to an embattled fortress someplace in uh, about where you're about County Monaghan, somewhere in there,
Yeah. Mhm.
and they were confronted with the Irish um, or Gaelic forces at some river crossing, and the Gaelic forces basically obliterated the English, and everywhere scattered throughout the river, flowing downstream and on the riverbanks, were biscuits.
Okay.
Yeah, the Battle of the Biscuits, and that's what it became
So,
known as, was the Battle of the Biscuits.
so curious. In Ireland, biscuit means cookie.
Yeah, yeah.
So were these
Apparently, they were bringing
cookie cookie
many
biscuits?
cookies to.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me see if I can
Well,
get
they would
the.
have it with their tea, I'm sure. So it would make sense that
Yes.
the British would have that. So
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. Because yeah,
exactly.
my cousins call them bickies. The little kids call them
Bickies,
yeah.
Bickies, yeah. I thought maybe you'd run across it since you were making it as a form of a biscuit or a cracker. So,
Yeah. And I do make Irish soda bread too.
oh, it's so good.
That is so good.
So what do you do on St. Patrick's Day?
Corned beef and cabbage and soda bread.
Salad bread, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I really
So,
like the boiled beef with, they don't eat that in Ireland. That's
correct.
not
oh,
that
really?
It's a New York thing, yeah.
it's a New York thing. It
Yeah.
was because a lot of the corned beef that the British Navy purchased was from Ireland because the Irish didn't weren't rich enough to buy the beef that they were making, but the Navy started making it or buying it for the sailors because it kept. And then when the Irish, um, you know, moved to New York, where there's the diaspora from all the famines and everything, um, the Jewish delis had corned beef that reminded them of home, even though they hadn't actually eaten it at home.
Ah,
So,
And
interesting.
interesting, a little tidbit, corn actually just means like small piece or small thing.
yes,
And
yes,
Yeah,
so like maize, yeah, anyway, so, but I
yeah.
always
right,
thought that
right.
was
Corn
interesting.
just means the beef has been spiced with a bunch of small pieces.
Yeah. Um,
Isn't it amazing how much completely useless trivia we all have in our heads?
Oh yes, I'm full of it.
Terry, it has been an absolute delight to have you on the podcast. So
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed yourself
Absolutely, yes.
and look forward to reading your books.
Thank you
oh,
very much. It's been
thank
great to
you.
meet you both.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, it really is. It's wonderful to meet a kindred soul who is as curious as I am. And I
Yes.
definitely look forward to keeping up with your writing.
And don't forget, you can see this book and more from Minnesota authors in the Bell Cow catalog, heading to libraries and indie bookstores across Minnesota and beyond.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday with another amazing Minnesota author.